I now ask Ms. Janet Neff, member of Grace Royersford and treasurer of our synod, Pastor Carl Richards, St. Matthew Springfield, and chairperson of the Finance Committee to come forward for presentation of the auditor's report and the proposed budget for 2016.
I like that. They're clapping before we actually give a report. That's a good sign. And I don't want to see any red cards out here. We all want to be in green or black, right? Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss the auditor's report, and then I'll kind of, in sync with that, talk about what happened last year. I'm trying to work the PowerPoint. Nothing. Okay, wait. Nothing's happening yet. I'll just do my report.
Can somebody help Janet with the her remote?
I'm there, but I'm trying to show the PowerPoint. There we go. Okay. So, no, okay. So somebody is working it for me, which is fine. And I have a PowerPoint presentation that's going to go over the audit report. I just want to tell you, I've actually been treasurer for 4 years now, which is kind of amazing. Wow. Yes. And instead of being elected by the Synod Assembly, I just want to thank the Synod Council because they elected me for another 4 years, and I appreciate that. And we've had a lot of changes in the last 4 years, but I'm happy to say, I think I reported this last year, that we have an accountant on our staff now, Martin Schwab, who has been a messenger from God, I think. It's really helped us in the Synod office, helped my job, and I'm sure has helped the bishop's job as well. So we'll thank you for that. This year, we actually have an audit report that is not a draft. It's an actual report the auditors completed. They worked in March, and by April, we have a complete report, and you see that in your documents. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight the audit report, a couple things that I'd like to bring out. So the first one is what's called our Statement of Financial Position, and that's a snapshot of where we stood on January 31st. And it kind of goes over what our assets and our liabilities are. So of our assets, the total cash and investments that we had as of January 31st was about $2 million, $1,989,000. Then a statement of financial position takes the assets minus the liabilities and comes up with net assets. And our net assets are $3,117,000. Now, we as a synod divide our net assets in a couple of categories. So you can see from the screen, unrestricted, temporarily restricted, and permanently restricted. And I've described this in the past. The permanently restricted are things that we have from trusts, estates, etc., where we're just getting the income from that. Temporarily restricted are things where we receive funds during the year, but it has a designated purpose, and eventually we'll be paying that out for specific things. There could be money coming in for youth events, let's just say, and then that money gets put out, like for instance, we have a youth gathering this year, so then those funds get put out in the year that it occurs. And then the unrestricted are monies that come in for our regular budget. Our income, as you can see, our total support and revenue was $3,713,000, and that came from a variety of things. That came from all donations from churches, which we call mission support, which was $2,148,000. And the good news is that was actually an increase over the previous year. So, oh yes, there you go. So we're heading in the right direction. Then we have other contributions, which are things like All Saints, grants, gifts that we've received, etc. We have registration fees to the assembly, to the convocation, to various events that we have. We have investment income. So since we have investments, as I said in the previous screen, we have interest and dividends that come in from those investments. Then we have the last thing, which was a sale of a closed church this year, and that was St. James Chalfont. And I'm sure you've probably heard about that in the past, that the church had closed a number of years ago, and we finally did sell that property. And basically how that works is the net on the settlement sheet from St. James Chalfont was $502,000. How it works is 15% comes to the Synod, so that would have been $75,000. Then, during the years when we have churches that are closed, we continue to pay those property expenses until we sell the church. So what ended up happening was St. James Chalfont had a loan with the Mission Investment Fund that all during these years we've been paying that loan. So some of the proceeds, $221,000, went to pay off that loan, and then the balance of what we had left, $207,000, was also used to reimburse the Synod for those property management expenses that we've been incurring over the years. So normally we want to take, our idea is after we have the 15%, then we want to be able to put that money into the Mission Investment Fund. But in this case, that didn't happen because of the number of closed churches that we had and the property expenses that we've been incurring on that. So that's kind of how that money got distributed. The next slide will show where our mission support has been. So you can see back in 2010, we were at about $2,347,000. In 2013, we were at $2,138,000, and now in 2014, we were at $2,148,000. And so we are seeing, since 2012, you can see that we have started increasing a little bit. And hopefully some of you have heard from our stewardship committee, and I think that is helping. And you'll see on the next slide how much we have received in support from congregations. So of our 157 congregations, you can see how many give about 10% or more of what they receive. We have about 41% given that 5 to 10%, 44 a little bit lower, and there are 21 that have not given any support. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we are as a synod. 81 congregations have maintained or increased their support in 2014. So that's a positive. That's more than half of our congregations. So that's not just larger churches, smaller churches as well. The next slide talks about our expenses. And you can see I've divided out our expenses so that you can have an idea of what we do spend. First of all, we give 50% to the ELCA. So of the amount that we receive, 50% goes to the ELCA, and that was $1,076,000. The next thing is the property management. I wanted you to see in just the 1 year what we spent on property management, and that was close to $150,000 that we were putting out for the churches that have closed. We also have distributions to other agencies. And that's again money that comes into us that we distribute. And as many of you know, we've changed our policy at the Synod. In the past, you sent all your contributions into the Synod that would go for other ELCA ministries, Lutheran charities, etc. Well, we don't do it that way anymore. You send it directly to the ELCA or to the agency. We're not in the past, what would happen is it would come to us, and then we would send it. And we just found that things were taking a lot longer. If you kind of waited till the end of the quarter to send it to us, and then we waited till the end of the quarter to send it to them, everything got delayed. And it's much better for it to go directly. And we still get a report of what the churches are contributing, so we know that. The next thing has to do with our mission. What we're spend on mission, $464,000, and in addition to that, we're giving grants to congregations of $93,000. So earlier, when you were talking about Forward Together in Faith and maybe taking a risk, this is where we've taken risks, where when you can see how much we're putting out in our various mission priorities. The next slide is a pie chart of our total expenses, and you can kind of see from this chart where we spend our money. So some people kind of like to look at numbers, other people like to look at things like pie charts, and it kind of shows you in this example how much are we giving to partnerships, which I just talked about, ELCA, other ministries, how much are we putting to mission, how much are we putting into leadership, which is candidacy, etc., and what goes into administration and office of the bishop. In the next couple pages, I'm describing what these ministries are. So for instance, with partnerships, it's other SEPA agencies and institutions, it's ELCA, it's church-wide, it's other networks that we have at Strengthening Faith. The next one is mission. How do we spend in mission? We provide oversight, equipping, financial assistance to mission congregations, other congregations we're assisting, and other things like youth, global, our companion synod. Office of the bishop. Basically, governance, Senate council, finance, communication, deans, all kinds of things. And then we have Synod administration, which are basically the normal operating expenses, occupancy, utilities, insurance, etc. And then the last one is leadership, which is basically candidacy and lay leadership. So in a snapshot, if you're kind of looking for like how does the Synod spend their money, these are the areas that we spend it in. So that concludes my report. And the only other thing I wanted to mention as we're talking about, and we'll continue to talk about the Forward Together in Faith, is that when those donations come in, they will be set up in a separate account. But in order to get the Forward in Faith going, we have to spend some money. So what's happening is we have spent so far $118,000, and that money has come out of our fund for mission. So when the first donations start to come in, they will be reimbursing the fund for mission first before it goes to the other priorities. And other than that, I guess my last thing would be to make a motion to receive the auditor's report.
Do we need a second, Ray?
No, it's coming from.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Yes. Microphone number 1.
It's Dr. Leonard from St. Mark's Lutheran Church in Philadelphia. I just had a question. I know last year, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we did vote to allocate $20,000 to the African descent strategy for that to be worked out. There hasn't been any, I guess, correspondences or anything from the African descent strategy that money was given or what they did with that money. So I just raised that because I believe that if we're going to live into this thing, it took time and a lot of effort on a lot of people's, and from the bishop's initiative, a lot of people working together to put that strategy together. And I think now we need to live into it. So I'm looking, I think all of us who are here, especially those of African descent, we should all be concerned about that and working with that to make sure that we're living into this strategy that we put forth. So I'm just raising it to see if the African descent strategy, if that committee has received the $20,000, what they've done with it, and so forth, just accountability.
Well, I just want to say, I think the African Dissent Strategy Committee needs to give a report maybe to Synod Council. I don't think we, and then the money will be given based upon the strategies, not ahead of time. Okay, see what I'm saying? So when there's a strategy, then we would give the money, and so there's been a little bit of a lag in some of the strategies being developed. But we are encouraging, and we want to support it. We just have to have the strategies come forward.
So I see the problem is the strategy committee.
I wouldn't say that.
Yes. Okay.
Did I say that?
So
no, you said that.
They need to get moving.
Somebody needs to get moving, and then the money will come. I'm just saying. Okay.
Yes.
Any other discussion?
Are there any other questions, concerns? If anybody has a question about any detail of our financial statements, if there's anything you don't understand, please, I welcome you to knock me over somewhere and talk about it. And you all have in your reports what your own congregation is doing. So I encourage you to look at that report where it's by conference, look up where your congregation is, and kind of see where you are as far as your mission support to the Synod. Thank you very much.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh.
Are you ready to vote?
Oh, yes.
Yes,
okay.
we need to vote on this. Those in favor of adopting the auditor's report, please raise your green card. Opposed, your red card. It is adopted.
And I also want to thank we have an audit committee head by Rod Rothermill. He's around here somewhere. Yes, and they've been a great help.
Okay, I'd like to ask Pastor Carl Richard to come forward and to give us a report on the budget.
I get to be here for the reason you all came, right? Everybody comes because they want to vote on a budget. There was more cheers for the audit. Not that I'm feeling bad or anything, but I am here to present, if it's going to work with the remote. There we are. Whoops. Go back to the beginning, please. There it is, our Synod budget. There we are. If you want to follow along, it's on pages B10 through B13 of your bulletin of reports, B for budget 10 through 13. The sheets, while a lot of people think budgets are boring and confusing and frustrating, I want to say there are 3,170,000 reasons why I think they are anything but boring. Our budget is approximately $3,170,000 in expenses that we are about to incur as we go into the 2016 year. But when we have $3,170,000, it's not dollars, it's people. Okay, whoops, where we are. Whoop. Oh, we're missing, I'm looking for the picture of the church. That's the one. We're talking about the people that are in the buildings, even as we've heard that we need to get out of the buildings. But part of what we need to do when we are coming together is we need to figure out how can we support the congregations and the ministries that are going in there. And so as Janet mentioned in the reconciliation of 2014, there are parts that are very key in this. Our bishop, our deans, our candidacy committee, our mobility committee, all those ways in which pastors and rostered leaders get placed with congregations and congregations get fed by that, all the ways in which we have programs that encourage us, such as the Synod Assembly, where we can come together 500 or so strong and sing like we sing today. It is a good thing. When we come together, we support congregations with the money in that budget. We find ways in which we can do the things that we need to do together, the convocation that we go through as rostered leaders, where we learn and are fed, places where we come together for forums and conferences and areas. Supporting congregations is a significant part of what we do with the 3,170,000 reasons we come together. We also, if I get the picture of the people, serve those in need. We just saw in that video all these ways in which we work out together in mission. Violet Little in the Welcome Church, Linda Manson and Living Gospel Ministry, the Ronhurst Ministries, all the different ways in which we work together to be the body of Christ and be the hands and feet of Jesus in the world. If we don't support these things don't happen in the same way or with the same power. We just installed 3 people to specialized ministries, to rehabilitation centers, to Telford Community, to the Lutheran Charities. When we pool our resources, both financial and human, we can do tremendous things in the world, reaching out outside, unlocking the doors of our church and going out there and actually doing the work of Jesus in the world. There are 3,170,000 ways that we can do that. And in all of this, we are making a difference. I don't know if you can read that. This is a picture from the National Youth Gathering in New Orleans 3 years ago. I'm going to brag a little. The one that's leaning on the left is my daughter, but that's okay. On top of it, it says, "Be the change you want to see in the world," which was one of the things that came out of the National Gathering in New Orleans. The song "Make a Difference" was one of the songs that was sung by Rachel Kurtz as one of the gathering themes. And the young people 3 years ago heard what it was to make a difference. And I don't know about your young people, but the young people at St. Matthew, the young people at Holy Trinity Wallingford, the young people at Reformation Media, we went together as a group. And I have seen them continue to live that for the past 3 years, as they have worked to reach out to Loaves and Fishes Food Pantry, to Chester Eastside Ministries, to doing all kinds of things with the Thon to raise money to fight childhood cancer. There's a way in which when we empower our people, we empower them to make a difference in the world. And so what we do is we do all of this to be making a difference. And this is possible because our congregations have stepped up. It is a wonderful thing that we have received more from congregations this past year than we did the year before. You saw that trend, how it kept going down and down and down, and over the past 2 years, it has made a slight increase. It is a good thing. So what are we going to do? What is different in some ways? Oops, wanted to get to that one in a second. What are we going to do with all this money? Wherever that slide went back to the beginning, I put them out of order. I need the communications team to teach me how to do this. In some ways, what are we going to do with the money? More of the same. More of the ways in which we equip and empower, where we innovate and communicate and try to empower ourselves to be the church in the world. What is different as we go forward? We can bring it up now. She's gone.
Not Pat, Molly.
Molly Beck-Dean has moved up to the ELCA.
To the church-wide.
To the church-wide. There we are. Wherever she went, it's good for them, but sad for us. Although she did promise when we go to the national gathering, she will still kind of watch out for us. So we'll see if that plays out. But one of the things that we're going to go forward in is we have to figure out how we find a successor for Molly. I actually put up who is going to replace her, but who can replace? But we don't know who's going to come. As we look at the revised budget for 2015 and look at the budget into 2016, part of what we're looking at is how do we change our staffing and increase our staffing, and we put some money in order to make this position possible to be filled by either the right lay person or the right clergy person. We want to give some flexibility on this. It's a position that will be certainly focusing on youth ministry, but it may expand to other areas as well. What we have at the moment is we have 2 pastors on our synod staff. We have our bishop and we have Pat Davenport. Thanks be to God for them. Thanks be to God for them. It may be helpful to have another pastor on staff to help with some of the pastoral concerns. But if the right person comes that is a lay leader, we will certainly listen for the Spirit's guiding. So as we go into 2015, through the rest of 2015 and in 2016, part of what this budget also reflects is the recognition that we will be adding some staffing as we go forward. Our synod budget. You will see that there are 3,170,000 reasons that we are going to spend money. You will also see that there are 2,990,000 available known resources. If you look on the bottom of the page, the last page 4, you'll see that all funds is short by about $180,000. Lest you get too worried about that, well, you'll also see on that 4th page, B13, is the way in which we help to cover that. There are funds that we can use, funds for candidacy and other things, that funds have been set aside and made available for these purposes. And so some of those monies will be transferred from reserves we already have. And some of that will be transferred from the Fund for Mission, which as congregations go through their life cycle and close, that seed money bears new fruit as we use some of that money for the mission that we continue. So as St. John's in Pottstown closed this past year, when it is sold, the resources from it will empower future ministry. This year on May 31, Messiah Newtown Square will be changing its ministry by stopping worshiping in Newtown Square, but they are entrusting to us the resource that they have so that ministry can continue. So you'll see that 141,000 of that 181,000 will come from the Fund for Mission. Now, if you like the idea of not using as much from the Fund for Mission, we can all give more. It never hurts. But we will not close the synod. We will not stop the ministry. The gates of hell shall not prevail against us, because Jesus is still in charge. And while we are going forward together in faith in this initiative, we are already going forward together in faith in this budget. And so with that as background and that as rationale, I put before you the budget for the 2016 year for your consideration. I so move.
Do we need a motion? Is there a second? Second. Discussion? Please come to the microphone. Are you ready to vote to approve the 2016 budget, people of God? Okay. All in favor, raise your green cards. Oppose the red cards. The budget is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to take this opportunity to thank our treasurer and officer of the Synod, Janet Neff, and Pastor Richard, chairperson, the members of the Finance Committee, and Mr. Martin Schwab, our senior accountant, for their hard work, for the meetings, the phone calls, the conversations in preparation for the Synod budget.